Recording, and here we are. All right, so we'll be back. This is our second video in still this PHP and MySQL, including HTML and the rest. I did this yesterday, but my live stream was cut short and I didn't do the recording. So today I'm going to do both. I'm going to do the live stream is running, and also I want us to continue with the recording as well. So I'm going to delete all that is here. We do this at once. So we're going to create a login system and starting with the login page in HTML. Then once that one is already done, we can go ahead and create our PHP backend, which will be in this other file called signin.php. And then later on, once a login is successful, we're going to create a simple landing page whereby once a user logs in successfully, we allow them to go in, log into their page. After logging in, they go ahead and do something. And that something can be just maybe say having a dashboard or another thing. Now let's begin. I'm gonna try to be a little bit fast today, though not very fast. So you follow up the way you can at any particular speed. So first of all, we start with writing the tag doc type, which just tells us the type of HTML document that the kind of document that we're dealing with. Then secondly, we are going to look at the HTML tag, which obviously you know what this one means. It's kind of like the parent tag for all the other tags that we have in our web. So I'm going to just go do a simple head. And in the head section, I'm going to just have three tags probably. One is going to be the meta tag, which tells going to keep for us the character set of this page. I've already gone ahead to save it as .html. That's why you see my tags being highlighted. But if I had not done that before, these tags here won't be highlighted. So you can go ahead and do that as well. Save your file as a .html file immediately, and then you come back and start doing this or following me. But if not, if you're okay with just having your text like this, white as mine is, well and good also for you. So let's add a viewport, and then we give it a content of its content is usually the same as the width of our device. So device width is going to be the value. So device width, it's hyphen. Okay. Then we can give it an initial start point, or maybe say the initial scaling, which obviously is supposed to be 1.0. That's the default that we have. Then that should be enough. And go ahead and add the title tag. So for the title tag, we're just gonna call it a simple login form. Okay. Yeah, can call it a login form or just a single login form, which can be fine. So this is enough for my head tag. I'm going to come back to the head tag when we start adding our styles, because today we're going to add the styles in our HTML. The previous video, we didn't add any style. We just wrote a plain HTML page just like that, and there was no any other styling. But for this time around, let's first add the first tag is going to be a div, which is going to have a class called container. Okay, it's gonna be just a container for my login form, and in this case, I'm going to give it a class called login container. Now this login container is what is going to house, or maybe say keep, the entire form fields and the text and then the buttons which are there. And inside it, I'm just going to get let's say a h1, a h2 probably, and we call it let's just say login. Other styles will come in later. Yes, in yesterday's recording, I tried to do something different. Today also, I want to do a little bit something different. So form, action, this is where we want our values, our form to be handled. We shall take it to a signin page.php. I'm going to create a file called signin.php, which I've already created anyway. So I'm just going to leave everything as that. Then the method for submitting this form, we're going to use post. Okay. That should be enough. We're not going to add any file here, so there's no more info that I would want to add here. Now inside my form, I'm going to add a div tag which will house the form fields. And the first form field in this div tag, I'm going to give it a class attribute with a value called form group. So this form group is going to help me in styling. It's going to help me in styling my form, and the way it's going to happen or the way it's going to be seen, just wait and watch. Okay, so the first field that we want in our login form is going to be, let's create a label. Label is basically used to add the name of the form field, or maybe say just a marking of, instead of using username, let's use email. Gonna say it's for email, and then here it's gonna be email. Can put that like that. Then I close this label tag. Then I'm going to add an input tag, which is of type, let's say email, which is going to keep our email, and we're gonna give it a name attribute. This name attribute is going to be called email. This is what PHP is going to use later to pick the value which the user would have entered by that time. Then we can add a placeholder, and this placeholder will just be enter your email. As simple as that. Then let's add this attribute called required, which will not allow a user to go anywhere unless they have entered an email. If their email field is empty, then they will not be allowed to move anywhere. Even in clicking the button, they won't be able to click. Once they click, they will be reminded that no, you have to first go ahead and fill in or enter your email. So let's create another div tag with the same class form group, which is going to house again another form field or input field. And this case is going to be for the password. So a password field, the label is going to be for password, and we give it the same label, password. And then, yeah, that should be enough. Then we can add an input tag, which is of type password, and can also give it a name, which PHP also is going to use later. The name attribute is going to store the name, which its value is going to be what the name which PHP will be using to fetch the password which the user would have entered. Still here again, we say enter your password. Okay, we can also make it required such that users cannot go anywhere without entering their password. So that should be enough. Let's just add a button. We can go ahead and add a button now just by using the button tag, or maybe say the input tag. Either of them can work. But here I'm going to use a button tag with a type submit, and I'm gonna give it a class because it's this class which I'm going to use later to add style to this particular button. So I'll call it login button or login btn, just a short form. And here I'll just click login. I will give it a value called login. Then we close this button. After closing the button, let's ask a user for something else. So I'm going to add a footer down, some text down below the form, which I will put it in a class called something like extras. Let's put it extra links. And inside here, inside this div, I'm going to put two texts. I'm going to put a button, or maybe say a link to take you to a login page, a registration. This one here, I'm going to put, maybe you want to go ahead and I'll ask you to go ahead and implement this one here on your own, because right now I'm not going to do it. Maybe say the user has forgotten their password. What should they do? So here you can give them an option. So where I put the hash sign or the ampersand in the href value there is where you're going to put the value, or maybe say the name of the file where you want the user to go if they have not, if they have forgotten their password. Now, if they don't have an account, then we ask them to go ahead and register. So could see put your sign up here, and maybe we can add another tag. Okay, let's put just sign up. This should be enough. I don't want to add so many other things. So I'm going to save this file. I've saved it in a folder in my htdocs, XAMPP under htdocs, and a folder called web. So when I go to my browser and let me open up a C drive inside this, and XAMPP. Okay, let me first start XAMPP also. Double click on this for it to start. Why? Because I will need PHP running. So as my XAMPP is starting, let me just click this do button to get them started. I will come back and check. Then I go up here in the folder htdocs, right there in a folder called web, right there. So this is where I've saved my login.html. So I can go ahead and run it, or I can go to my browser, click this and open the browser. Once my browser is open, I'll go to localhost. Let me first check if everything is running the way I want here. Yeah, Apache is running, MySQL is running. So I'll come here and go to localhost/web. Press enter. So inside /web, I have an index.html already where I want the user to come after they have already logged in. But that's not what I want at the moment. What I want is just a login.html, which we have just created. So this is our login.html. Now, this page does not look nice. Let's first go ahead and style it. By default, the browser has already added for us the margin here. You see the space here before E, the space before P, and then the space before L, and there's also some spacing already here and there, and that's not what we want. So what we're gonna do in this case, let me first clear the cookie data. I don't want anything here. Okay, so what we're going to do here is quite simple. We go back to our notepad, come to the head section here and add a style tag. So our style tag is going to be just simple, like style. Then we first remove all these other styles which the browser has added for us. I don't want that. Hopefully you don't want as well. So I'm going to remove the margins, all of them, and move all the paddings, all of them, reset them to 0, and change the layout or the display, which is going to be using box sizing. We can use a box sizing in this case, and say we give it a border box, and then we can go ahead and change the entire font family. So for the font family, I'm going to use let me just use Arial. And if Arial is not available in this browser, I'm going to use sans serif, either of them. So this one here removes for me all the styles on the browser. So if I go ahead and refresh this, all these other spaces you see, they have already been removed. So all the margins and the padding, they have already been removed. That's what I wanted to do. Now let's change the body a little. So the entire background of the body here, we're going to change this entire background from white to Let's use a color gradient. I have a certain value here which I want to use. Let's first select the body tag. So this is a selector for the body tag, and its display, we're going to put it flex, and then we are going to give it, let's say we're going to center their content using the justify content, and let's say the value is going to be center. And all the other items, we can go ahead and align them still to the center. And we can also change the height, the total height of, let's give it a 100 viewport height. So when we refresh this, we expect this text here to be at the center. Yeah, like that. Then secondly, we can change this white background. Yeah, white background is always the default, but I very much don't want to use that at the moment. So for that, I'm going to use linear gradients. So for the value of linear gradient, I'm going to use, let me try. For this one, you're just going to try different values that work for you. Me, I've already checked these colors and I've tested them, so they're working for me. I'm just gonna write it. So I'm going to have 6A and 911 CB. And then for the third color, I'm going to put 257. 5FC should do. FC. Now this one here changes my background to a little bit of a blue gradient, but not quite blue. See, it's kind of like pink again, and I wanted a blue. But anyway, it's gonna be up to you. You'll change this to whatever design or whatever style works for you. Me, for this class, I'm just going to use that one. I don't want to go through the color wheels and changing all these colors. It's gonna take us time. Okay, well and good. So let's go to the login form now, the section, the container for the login. We created a class called login container. And in this class, we're going to, everything which is in that class, we're going to give it a background white. We're going to change that background to white, give them a little bit of a padding of 2, and then add a little bit of a border radius and a shadow. Then maybe say a bit of a border. So let's start by changing the background. So for the background, I'm not going to use all the values. This is a short form of the background. You already know that. So this one gives it a white. Instead of just writing the word white, I'm just gonna use the hexadecimal. And I change its padding to 2RIM. Now if only this one's here, if it's refresh, you realize that the background changes and then the margin is increased on both sides to M, which is okay. Then let's add a little bit of a border radius. So for the border radius, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the rounding on the sides. We can use 10 pixels. Let's see how 10 pixels look like. Yeah, 10 pixels looks better. The border, the rounding at the corner of the boxes is what I mean, in the corner of the background. Let's add a bit of a shadow then. Shadow, we are going to use box shadow to add a shadow in this case. And the direction on top, we don't want any shadow. At the bottom, we want some shadow. Then on the left and right, we want also some shadow of those sizes. Then for its color, I'm gonna use RGBA to pass in the colors which we want to give. So those colors would be a little bit of black, but then for the opacity, I'm going to reduce it to that. Then let me first save this and see. Okay, since my background is a little bit purplish, you may not see that one. So I needed to use a different color. But for now, let me just do that. Let's let the container to cover the a width of about 350. and its content we shall later on give it to cover the entire section of this. So I think this one here makes much sense, but not quite. So about 300. Let me see. Yeah, I think 300 is not bad. Let's use 300. Okay, so let's go ahead and style this login text. So it's in the div or in the container called login container, but inside there I just want a h2. So any h2 which is inside that div with a class called login container, I'm going to pick it, and for it I'm going to center its text. So you say text align, and we say it's gonna be center, and then for it let's add a space below a little, margin bottom, and we can put it about 1.5. Hoping 1.5 is not gonna be bad. Then for its color we make it still, it's gonna still be black, but now this black is going to be kind of like not a full black. All right. Okay, that's much better. As push the content down because that's added a button, I mean a margin below here. And now let's go ahead and add styles to these form fields. And the form fields, we have them in a class called form group. So let's go ahead and pick that form group first. So we select form group, and for the form group, the first thing which I wanted to have in all the entire form group is just adding first a margin below them. So margin of same thing we have given to the text above, we can also give to the form groups. So let me see. Okay, yeah, now that's perfect. Then for the individual form groups, now what I'm going to do here is simple. I'm going to pick the form groups, I mean the labels which are inside the form group. So for every label which is in a class called form group, or its container is having a class called form group, I'm going to go select that. Or I can just go ahead and say label. But now sometimes I may have many label in my page, so I need to be specific. And then, okay, that now I'm saying I want a label only there. So this style is going to be applied to only labels which are in a div with a class called form group. So for that display, I'm gonna make it black so that it can be on its own line. Then the margin bottom as well, I'm going to let me reduce it, give it some margin bottom of 5 rem also compared to the entire radian. Then for the color is going to be, let's use a bit of 5.5, and then we shall see. Let's make it weight bold. So font weight, you're going to be bold, not bolder. Let's try bold, and then you see. If it doesn't work, then we shall put it bolder. Okay, I think bold works. Right, so that should be enough for the form groups. How about the input tags? These inputs here, let's also go ahead and add some style to them. And the way we do that, we still use the form group. We only want the input tags which are inside a class called form group. If any input tag is outside that, we're not going to give it this style. So for it, we want it to cover the entire section of its parent. So the entire space within its parent, it's going to occupy. So it means from here up to here, it should occupy it with, that is 100 width. And then we can give a padding to the content inside. Padding can now be the other placeholder we are seeing, or maybe say the text that the user will enter later. for the username and password. Then we can also kind of like give its border a bit of a different color. So we're gonna use 1 pixel as the size, which is still does normal. Then the type is still normal, also solid, but now the color I'm going to give it, let's try CC and see. Then we're gonna round its side also, just like we have rounded there its parent container. So in this one, we're gonna give, let's try 5 pixel. If it doesn't work, if it's small, we change it. And then, okay, let's first do this and see. Okay, not bad. But now, okay, I think there's this outline around it, which I don't want. Let's try to increase this to about 10 and see. Okay, that's much better for me. Okay, what else? Does it have a outline? Let's try to reduce that and see. So if you remove its outline, how will it look like? Okay, now when I click on it, nothing is seen. See? But if with this one here, let me first remove this. And this one was here. See, once I click it, that one happens. But I can go ahead and use this one here during the time of over, or maybe say on focus. I can just go ahead and change that color to something else. But for now, let's leave it at that. So for the outline, and then maybe say there will be a change later on. Transition, gonna change its border color to, on transition, we change its border, give it a border color, and also it's allow it to take like 3 seconds to change. Okay, that should be enough. Then when there is a focus, that is once we have clicked on it like this, now we are gonna change the color of the border. So form group input, but then when there is a focus. Focus is when you have clicked it and then there is a cursor blinking inside that form. That's what we call focus, and we're gonna give it a border color of I think we gave this one up there for our background. Was it background or yeah, the background gradient? Let's use the same thing, 2575 FC. Okay, so now let's refresh this. Okay, now it's changing to what I want. Okay, that's much better. Now it's time to give our button here a style. So for the button, we will have it inside a class called login button. So let's go ahead and add that style. Now for our login button, the first thing that I want us to do is also, let's make it occupy the entire section of the parent as well, just as the form fields are doing it. Then we also add some spacing in the middle of it, which is still the same, 7.5 as the input. And for its background, I'm going to use the color which is for the input fields on focus, that is 257 FC. And we remove its border. We don't want the border around it. What do I mean? Let me first save this and refresh. Now, if you look at this, there's some border, the black border around this one here, around this button, and I don't want that. So I'm going to use border and I give it a value none, and I say I don't want any value there. So you see, now the border disappears. That black border has disappeared, and that's what I wanted. And let's give it a rounding also. So border radius, make it rounded by, let's try the 5 pixels we have used earlier. These values, sometimes you just go ahead and try them and see what one work for you. 5 is not seen enough, visible enough, I mean. So refresh this. Okay, now that is much better. And our text is a little bit small, and also this color black, I don't want it. Let's first change the text color to white using color, and then you say white, or I can actually go ahead and do this. You can actually say color white, and it will still work. Okay, that one will also work, either of those two. So either, I mean, not color white, but the other white which we used earlier, this white here, the triple F, all of them will still give us the same color white. And let's change its font size anyway. So I'm gonna change its font size as well, and then we check how it's looking like. So for the font size, let's try 1 RM, and then we see. Refresh this page. Nothing has happened. Did we save? Oh, here we didn't terminate here. Let's terminate that. Save it. Refresh. Yeah, now that one works. So either way, you can use this. Let me see if I've used this one here. Will we still get the same color? Let's see. Save this. Refresh. Yeah, it's still the same color. So you can use either of them, the color names, or maybe say the hexadecimal. Then now you see, when I bring my mouse here, nothing changes. So I want the mouse, but when I bring it on the link, it changes to this hand. So I want the mouse also to, once the cursor comes here, this cursor changes to the hand, just like here. So when it's on the button, it should change also to hand. And the way I can do that is using a cursor, a selector, and I give it a value of pointer. And then still again, we can give it a transition of a background. And for background, we go ahead and say it should take like 3 seconds, which should be fine. So now when I save this, refresh it and bring my cursor here, you see it has changed to the hand. Okay, so what happens when the mouse comes on top of it like this? It's what we call hover. So we want to trigger something whenever a mouse is on top of it. That's another state of the links. So still I'm going to say that this login button, but whenever the mouse is on it, hover, you go ahead and do this. You go ahead and change its background. Give me a different background, the background which I'd given up earlier at the beginning for the body of my for the background of the entire body, which is 6A 1111C-B, this background here. So when you refresh this, 7 refresh, you see the background changes to purple, which is this color around this side. Okay, then how about this forgot password and sign up? Let's go ahead and give it a little bit style. They are found in a class called extra links. So we can go ahead and open up another one called extra link. And now in the extra link, what we're going to do is just 2 or 3 things. But the first one, let's first get the extra link class and give it all the things in the extra link. We center line them, text align, and then we put them center, and we remove the margin on top. We add margin on top, margin top, and we say it's going to be, let's give a small one like 1 RIM, because there's no space between the value and then the unit, because when you look at this, there's no space between here at the moment, but now when I refresh, there's a space, and also the text is already centered, which is what we want. Okay, so now let's style the individual links, or maybe say the anchor tags inside there. So we say links, and we want the anchor tags which is inside the class called links, and for it we're going to change its color to the normal color that we have been working with, which is a 257 and then 5 FC. Then for the text decoration, we want to remove the underlining which is in between, under our text. I don't want that. So when I refresh this, the color should change, and also this underscore underline here should disappear as well. That's what you're trying to mean. Okay, cool. So we can go ahead and give some bit of a margin, because I think we don't need margin on the top or the bottom, but we can put margin between the sign up and then the forgot password. So for that, I'm going to use the shorthand property of margin, which takes in two values. The first value is for the top and bottom. The second value is for the left and right. Then for their font size, I will increase it a bit to, I think this one should be fine. Okay, so when now I refresh this, there's kind of like a good one there. So you can actually go ahead and change their font size to some other values which we want. Then what happens when a mouse comes on top of them? What do we think you should do? On over. That is when the mouse is over it. What should be done? I think here we just bring back the text decoration. Okay. So for the text decoration, we can go ahead and put underline. So we bring the other underlining back, and this is how it's gonna be. See, the underline now comes back. Okay. So this is my good login form, and that's what I'm going to work with for now. So the next thing is now going to add, because when I click on this, I should be taken to the signin.php. Why? Because here we have said that our action is inside signin.php. So we go ahead and create a new file called, and then we shall save it as signin.php. And we can go ahead and open our PHP tag. Then we close it somewhere here. Then inside here, we can go ahead and start writing our PHP code. But since I've already written it down here, I can probably just copy whatever is here and then we continue. But I don't want to do that. What I want us to do is I'm going to take you through everything step by step. But the only thing which I'm going not to take, I'm just going to remove or copy this line here where I'm setting up these variables. So right inside here. All right. Or we can, if we write it at, again for every other time, it's going to take me some time, which I don't want. So I'm just going to remove. Anyway, let me just have this if statement down here, just in case. So we go ahead and let me just save this file as test. So going to save it. What I will do for now, let me probably just rename this to something else like a sign in one. Okay. Then here we can go ahead and save our file. Okay, I'm gonna close this. So save this as inside here as sign in dot php, and I say it's a hypertext preprocessor file, which is around here. Choose that, then click save. So this is what we have. So our database host, because we said that to connect to MySQL, the database, we need the host, or maybe say where the MySQL database is running. Then we need the user who is there. We need the credential for the user who have access to the database. And then also we need a database which is existing in that MySQL database. So in this, we created a database called WebDB. And then let me just go back here and I show you. So right here, we have a database here called WebDB, which we had created. And inside WebDB, this is where we have our information. Now that we have this one here, we can go ahead and make connection there. So inside our PHP code here, we're saying this is the database that we want to connect to. And our username is root, because when you install MySQL, probably using XAMPP, you use that the default root user is always a root, and is the super user in this case, has access to anything. So we don't feel like going ahead and creating another user. Let's just use this one here. And okay, now to make the exact connection, we have a PHP function called MySQL connect, which takes in the host, that is where the database is running, the username, and then the password of the database user, and the database that we want to make connection to. So once this MySQL runs and it makes a connection, it's going to return for us the connection object that we store here. And if it does happen to get any error or an issue during making the connection, it's going to return for us a state which is false. So the false is also going to be stored in this variable called connection. Now we have to go ahead and establish that the connection was actually successful or not. So if it was not successful, then we're going to say because it will have a false. So not false is a true. And then in that case, we're going to enter here, disconnect ourselves from the database connection, and then just display the error that we got during the connection. But if everything was successful, we made a good connection, then now the next part is to come and start reading the information, the email and the password which the user has entered before they click the submit button. And to do that, we first need to make sure that the request method which was used for submitting that form or posting that form is a post. Now, if it is a post, then we can go ahead and start reading the values. And the values that we are going to read is basically this one here. We're going to read the email, and then we're going to read the password. So the password, the input box for password has a name attribute called password, and then the input box for email has a name attribute called email. So it's these email and password attributes, values of the name attributes, which we are going to use to read the values, to read the information which the user has entered from the keyboard. So let's go back here and read that. To do that, let's first create a variable for storing the information which the user has entered, starting with the email. So let's go ahead and use the post method. I'm not going to do any validation here, but it's always advisable that you go ahead and do your validations. But for now, we're not going to do that. We shall just go ahead and read our information which the user has entered. And it's going to be stored in a variable called email, I mean the PHP called email, and then for the password also, it's gonna be in the post variable called password. Why? How do I know it's a password? Because I come back to this form, look for the input tag, and select the name attribute, and the value of the name attribute is what I will put inside these posts as the key in this post variable for PHP. So here we had password. Okay, so now that one is already done. Right, so the next thing is that we can go ahead and now ask the database to give us all the information which the users entered in all the records, all the rows in our database, which has an email, which is the same as what the users entered, and it has a password, which is also the same as what the users entered. And to do this, we are going to, first of all, let's ask the question, which is, we request the database to say, select everything from, what is the table that we're working with? Let's use this default table here, our table of student in this case. So we have a table student, which has an email, and then it has a column password. So let's go ahead and use this. And so we're going to say select all from student table. Let's choose the tilde to go ahead and delimit the name of the student. Then I'm going to come in the next line and I say where, okay, where the email column is equals to the value which the users entered email, or the email which the users entered, and the and sign, if you remember, the password column, the value in the password column is also equals to the password which the user has entered. So if all these ones are correct, then I will be able to log in the user. Okay. All right, so make sure you match your quotes well. So I've started with a double quote and then I've closed with a double quote. Then in between the double quote, I'm using single quotes. Why? Because I can't use a double quote. It's going to mess my query up. So now that one is already done, we can go ahead and now ask the database by running the query. So how do we run the query? I'm going to store the information in a variable called result. So in the result here, I'm going to say MySQL query, which is the function we use to ask the database. It takes on the connection object, which we got earlier when we called MySQL connect here. So this connection is going to be stored inside that variable called connection. And then now the question that we want to ask the database, and in that our question is stored in a variable called query. So with that, if everything is okay, then we can go to another one. Now, if this one here is okay, we're going to get all the rows which matches the email, and also it matches the password. If any row does not match on any of this, it's not going to be returned. So the total number of rows which has been returned is going to be stored in another function called MySQL num rows. So that's what we're going to check. And MySQL num row function takes in the result of the query and it reads for us the total number of rows which has been returned. Now that is what we're going to use to validate whether the user information was actually found in our database or not. So we're going to say if MySQL num rows, which takes in the result of the query. So we're going to say result, and we're going to say if this value here is greater than 0, then we mean that at least one row had been returned. So if that is the case, we shall log in the user. So for logging in, you can just display a value here saying login, say congs login was successful. Okay, and then we can now take the user to the landing page or to the home page. So in the landing page, we are going to have a file called, this time around I wanted to use index. Anyway, let's start by index first. Index.html, like this, which is what the file which I have for now. Now, what if it has failed? Now, if it has failed, we're gonna put it in the else. That is, the user failed to. We didn't get any other information. And in that case, we're going to use tilde echo to display something and say sorry, error. And then the error we're going to say login failed. And we can just say, please check your, okay, I'm going to break that, your username and your email or password. It's actually the best message would be this. Let me put this one here in a h1 tag. Okay, then I'll close it here, close that h1 here, and close this tag, and then I'll enter another echo here, and I'll say this would be h4, and the h4 is going to say either your email or password is incorrect, like that. So put a h4 there, and then we close it. Now what's gonna happen here is, once the login fails, that is the user has entered a wrong email or password, we are not going to take them to index.html. They will remain in this page, and then we display for them this error. Okay, so let's save this up. After saving it, we're going to go back to our HTML form. Remember here in our login.html, we have it saying once the users click the sign in, the login button, they should be taken to our signin.php. And in our signin.php, we have the connection to the database. After making the connection, then we start reading the information which the user has entered, and we verify it with what is in the database. If maybe say it's found in the database, then we log in the user and take them to another page. If maybe say it's not in the database, then we just display for them this error, and we ask them to correct the information. So coming back here, I'm going to refresh this page, and I enter now an email. I'm going to enter the email which is in my database here, and the email is johndoe@gmail.com, and then the password is 1234. So come back here and say johndoe@gmail.com. Then the password should be 1234. So that's the password I have. And now I'm going to log in. Click the login button, and it says index.html is not found. So I think it's not index.html, it is index.php. So let's change this correctly. We are taking it to index.html, but we have index.php. So let's close this, come back here. But the recording was successful. I mean, the login was successful, but the only thing which failed was the file that we had put in. So we add John Doe at gmail.com, and then we can go ahead and enter our password as 1234. Log in and say hello, welcome to our home page. And hello, welcome to our home page is inside this index.php, which is saying hello, welcome to our home page. So this is basically how you go ahead and log in a user to a database, or maybe say to your system. But what if maybe say we had entered a wrong email? Say instead of writing John Doe, I put double O and I say at gmail.com. Then I put in the correct password 1234. See, chances that no error, login failed. Either your username or password is incorrect, and that one is being displayed from this section here of the if. That's in case we try to request the database to give us entries that matches this email and then this password, and we fail to get it. So yeah, I think that's all that I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you how to style this landing page, but now it's going to take us a lot of time. That one I'm going to give it as your own task, so you can go ahead and try it out. Maybe next time we can go ahead and style that. You can style the registration page as well, or I will add for you this other section and then you go ahead and try it. But that should be enough. Bye bye. See you next time.